Hello everybody, welcome to the fucking stream. It's good to see you guys. I have missed you even though only 2 days ago we spent 24 hours straight together. I want to do more streams like that. The more that I think about it, maybe not a full 24, but like, I want to do more streams where I will just be live for the entire day. I had so much fucking fun. I loved it. Every minute of it. Even though I was tired. So sorry, thank you for the super. Even though I was tired, I just want to do more like that. I had so much fun. Aura and Kumio and Angel, thank you very much. I want to make streams feel less like, I don't know, it's just fucking, I had so much fun. So a little about my day. I'm fucking pissed off because, so my plan, the update on the TV situation, I have successfully managed to order a replacement. And so that's coming on August 1st. And I'm like, oh god, I was supposed to have this TV like 2 weeks ago. At least it's gonna be here soon. And this time I've ordered professional installation, so I'm not gonna run into the issue of suddenly setting it up and finding a giant crack in it or something like that. Neko Saka, Chian, thank you very much. We should be good. But today I'm fucking pissed because I'm trying to get a refund on the old one. And for that to happen, I need the dudes from Curry's to come by and grab it. You'll hear during the 24-hour stream, they tried to do that, but it wasn't packed up. Like, I didn't know I had to do that. So they said, no, we can't do that. And they just left. And that was that. And so I've packed it up. It's all boxed. And I was waiting. They were going to pick it up today between 10 and 2. And I woke up ready at 10. They didn't fucking show up. Like, I've been checking the tracking app all morning. Just like, where the fuck are these guys? And they just have not shown up. The saga with this television is yet to find its end. There's just a new issue every single day. Yeah, and now that we're outside of the window, it's like, oh yeah, I guess they just didn't show up. Like, what the fuck? It's really odd. JC, my queen, thank you for the Aka Super, and happy birthday. I'm sorry we missed your birthday, but I hope you had a lovely, lovely birthday. Sulan Bendetta and A2ZA, thank you very much. But that's enough of that. Don't need any of that. Like, come on. Come on, we don't need any of that shit. Did I see Mr. Stream? Yeah, I saw a bit of it. I was at the dining table. I was just, you know, sipping some pilk, having some noodles, you know, looking at the view, and then suddenly I was like, oh, Mr.'s live. That's an odd thumbnail, and I clicked on it. And it was in the first 5 minutes where he was just going, like, what a creative idea for a stream. Ariel, thank you. Eating, thank you. You know, I'm always a big proponent of being your real, true, authentic self on stream, and I can confirm that's just what Mr. is like. And thank you for the super. It's been a while. It has been a while. Thank you very much for tuning in. So, what are we doing today? Well, I have been very excited for a stream like this because whenever I go on and on about... He played my ASMR. Is he stealing my fucking content? That rat bastard. But that's a joke. But yeah, no, like, you guys really enjoy when I talk movies, and that makes me happy because I'm like a massive nerd when it comes to le film. Like, I get very uptight and I get very like wound up when I talk about movies and everything like that. So I get really, really excited when I want to talk about my hobbies and things that I enjoy, and there's been no hobby that I've enjoyed more than like appreciating film and watching obscure movies. And to be honest, when you see my list today, anyone who's really versed in like art film and stuff, my list is a little basic. Like, I think that when it comes to slightly less mainstream cinema, my list is fairly ordinary. Like, it's all sort of surface level stuff, you know. It's the kind of thing that the instant you venture outside of the mainstream, it's sort of the first stuff that you run into. But I'm still really touched by all of the movies that I'm going to list today, and they may not necessarily be the quote-unquote best movies that you've ever seen, but they are my favorites. They're very personal to me, and they're the ones that have made the biggest impact on me. And so what we're going to do, we're going to run this down like a traditional top 10. So you know how on YouTube it's like, welcome to WatchMojo.com. Today we'll be counting down our top picks for Vox Akuma's favorite movies of all time. Let's get started with number 10. It really doesn't get much better than the original. Moving on with... Sorry, I can't stand... Oh my god, I should have a Letterboxd account, shouldn't I? Oh my god, that would be good. But anyway, I used to have a time like a little while ago, maybe like a decade or so ago, when I was in an apartment that I just like I just didn't enjoy. Like it was kind of just like a really ratty, like sort of cheap apartment. It was the only one I could afford. And while I was in there, I sort of ran into a point where I kept getting fucking recommended Watch Mojo videos. Like every single YouTube video was Watch Mojo, and whenever I was like at home, I didn't have anything to do. I just be like, I mean, I guess I'll look at top 10 Godzilla movies. I mean, I guess I'll look at top 10 bridges. I guess I'll look at top 10 mountains. And I've never felt more like broken and depressed as a person. Rumi, thank you very much. Ray Sakuma, thank you for the Aka Super. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. That's very sweet. Kuroneko, thank you. Do I need therapy? Yeah, I definitely do. Diana Chang, thank you very much. All right. So we're going to run this like a traditional top 10. I'm going to start with my number 10 favorite movie. I thought about it this morning and I have a definitive list of my favorite movies, although I will say that to an extent, I'd say options 6 through 10 are probably kind of even with each other. I haven't really thought too much about like the order and which ones I strictly prefer over others. This is just sort of like, Bored Identity, thank you for the super. This is just sort of like trying to list my 10 favorites, although I will say 1, 2, and 3 are all fairly good. I know what my favorite movie is, and I know what my other favorite movies are, but the top 10, you know, so whatever. And I've also got this, so I will be talking spoilers for some of them, and so whenever I am talking spoilers, I'll flash this on screen. So if you have not seen a film that I'm talking about, I'd appreciate it if you could mute while this is on screen, because I do not want to spoil any of my favorite movies for anybody, okay? Also, I'm thinking about this now, and like the more that I think about it, there are some films that like oh god, fuck me. Okay, I've got an idea. There we go. I just made a last minute change because there was one I forgot about. And I'm like, fuck, no, I can't not include that. Okay, so yes, welcome to Crystal and Ash Crimson. Thank you very much. Let's jump right in to what Vox Akuma's favorite films are. Starting with number 10. Whoosh. Welcome to WatchMojo.com. Starting with number 10. My number 10th favorite movie of all time is Marriage Story. A lot of these came out quite recently. I don't know. But there are a couple old ones, couple new ones, but a lot of my favorite films are fairly modern. But yes, so let's start by talking about Marriage Story. Marriage Story is a movie that contains Adam Driver, which makes it a 10 out of 10 by default. But one of the things that I like most about Marriage Story is that it's sort of like, it sums up one of my favorite things about one aspect of film that I think I always enjoy more than anything else is when a script and when a director really gives an actor space to shine, right? So, Marriage Story is a film where not just the two main stars, Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver, have a chance to really show off their acting chops, but there are so many supporting characters like Laura Dern, Wallace Shawn, Ray Liotta, you know, God rest his soul, and all of that. You know, these guys really have so much time to emote and perform and everything. And also, here's a fun fact about this movie. So the plot is about Adam Driver, who is a theater director, and his wife, who is a theater actress, and they meet through their art and they fall in love. But at the start of the movie, it's very well. God, I'm going to start crying thinking about the opening of this film, because essentially the way it opens is you've got these two writing a letter about what they love about each other, and it opens with, "What I love about Charlie," and she writes about all of these little things that make her so happy whenever she thinks about it. Like, he does this, he does that, he's energy conscious, he's a really big guy, he's sweet, he's good with our kid, he's emotional and all that. And then it goes over to him, he's like, "What I love about Nicole," it's like, she's always brewing a cup of tea she doesn't drink, and they're going on about all these little quirks they've come to appreciate about each other. But then in the scene after that, you come to realize they are doing this as in couples counseling. They are doing it as a step that comes before getting a divorce, and it really kind of like punches you in the gut. It's a movie that I think represents sort of the pain of divorce in a really, really effective way, because what it manages to do is that both main characters feel both right and wrong in lots of different ways, you know. There are lots of things that both of them do wrong, lots of things that both of them do right. They have these experiences which are, this is not an appropriate song for right now, Gnome Ball. They have this, it's like they know they don't want to be together, but they do love each other very desperately. And every day I wake up, they have this like, this really terrible dynamic where they want to take care of their kid. They want to stay together but they don't want to stay together, but they do love each other. And, you know, I'll leave the spoiler tag on. But there's the one scene in the movie, I cry. Every time I watch this movie, I cry every single time at 4 separate scenes. 4 separate scenes in this movie make me cry every single time I watch them. And the most effective scene of those is one where, during like one of the most chaotic periods of the movie, they sort of like, they're not talking to each other, they're arguing, they're sort of drowning in like legal bills, everything like that. They've been to court and everything, and it's so like upsetting to see how terrible their lives are going. But then all of a sudden you have this moment of like clarity almost, where these two, I can't remember what the setup is. I believe what happens is Charlie needs to drop their kid. I can't remember what the kid's name is. I think his name, is it Henry? I can't remember. But they need to drop the kid off at Scarlett Johansson's house, and she takes it. And then when they go inside, she says, "Hey, your hair's looking a little long. Do you want me to cut it for you?" And then he's like, "Yeah, okay." And they just sort of for a little while they exist around each other again, and you can kind of see a little bit of what makes their relationship so special. And in the same way, a lot of what they do, you see her in the opening monologue that they both share, that, she cuts his hair all the time. That's just something she's good at. And it goes back to that. It goes back to what you remember as being what they love about each other. And the scene that really gets me, the scene that really, really, really gets me is right at the end when Nicole has Henry, and Charlie is about to leave. They shut her big front gate together because he comes over to help fix her gate, because the gate is like an electric one, but it stops working, so he has to help her push it shut. And as they're shutting it, he's on the outside. I'm getting goosebumps. He's on the outside, she's on the inside, and then right as they're about to shut the gate, they sort of like lock eyes right as the gate is about to shut, and the camera cuts between them very quickly. And there is like actual despair on their faces as the gate like shuts between them. It's a really, really, really quick little moment, but it says so much. They've been going through all of this stuff because they know that the unfortunate thing about divorce is that it's so much more complicated than just we love each other so we will stay together. When things involve work, ambitions, personal problems, mental illness, resentment, a kid especially, sometimes it's more complicated than that. And while they do love each other, they can't keep this going. And it is communicated so effectively when they just look back at each other, and there is a lot of real pain when they look at each other, and then the gate is shut and they can no longer see each other, and they both have to live with the fact that they've both kind of shared an experience that they most likely they might not get to have ever again. It's really, really upsetting to see, but it's what I like about films, is when they take a really genuine experience and they communicate it in a very real way. They tell you how a person truly feels about a terrible situation, and they don't sugarcoat it. And at the same time, the film manages to be hilarious. It has a fantastic soundtrack. It's like it teaches you a lot about a different part of life that maybe you hadn't experienced. And as someone who hasn't been married, hasn't been divorced before, I felt like I understood how painful that might have been, right? And I think that's a very powerful thing. And we shouldn't shy away from films that try to help us feel what another person is feeling, even if it's not a good feeling to feel, right? I think that's a very important thing. Fun fact about this movie that kind of... I'll take the spoiler warning off because this is just a fun fact. A fun little tidbit about this movie, actually. So, the film is written by Noah Baumbach, who himself has been through a similar divorce. And so he sort of put a lot of what he was feeling into this film. He put a lot of what he was feeling into it. processed a lot of his hang-ups and his upset with divorce law, lawyers, that kind of stuff, and the stress of the situation, how much money he had to spend, all of the pain of leaving someone, you know, and you can really tell that it's a person's real experience. Now, I'm gonna hit you guys with a hard fact, right? Noah Baumbach writes very good romantic comedies. Let me have a look. What films has he done? I know he did Frances Ha. Noah Baumbach. He did Frances Ha. He did Squid and the Whale, Meyerowitz Stories. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And he's involved in the new Barbie movie. He's written a lot of really, really, really good romantic comedies, right? But you might notice an interesting other film on there. He also wrote Madagascar 3. And Madagascar 3, he wrote as a compromise because he needed money to pay for the extensive fees suffered by his divorce. So Marriage Story is a film based on the experiences that Noah Baumbach had while he was writing Madagascar 3. So he cast his mind back. What was the most painful moment of my life? Oh, it had to be when I turned to writing Madagascar 3 as a means of paying for my divorce. And in this film, they really illustrate how fucking expensive it is to get divorced, especially when lawyers get involved. And it's so upsetting. I'll put spoilers back. Because at the beginning of the film, they sort of talk about like, oh yeah, we know we're going to get divorced. We don't want to involve lawyers. We're going to split everything completely cleanly, 50-50. You know, nothing wrong. We don't hate each other. It's just the way it has to be. But then eventually, Nicole, the wife, she does get a lawyer involved. And then because of that, Charlie has to get a lawyer involved. And then it progresses from there. Charlie meets with his lawyer. Charlie meets with Ray Liotta, who plays, I can't remember what the character's name is, but he's a very expensive lawyer. And he talks about how he's like, yeah, I charge $900 an hour. This is Ted. He's my assistant. He is $400 an hour. You have a stupid question, you gotta call Ted. And and they go through all of these insane expenses for everything. Like yeah, no, you're gonna be running upwards of 20,000 for this, upwards of 25,000 for that. You've also got, and he's also saying like, one thing as well that I think it communicates really effectively is that they have to talk about, they take aspects of their relationship and turn it into a means of winning a court case, because that's what a divorce, or at least not always, but that's what can happen in a divorce. When you go to court, it's about, you know, winning custody, winning this, winning that, and all of a sudden aspects of your relationship become evidence in a court case, and that's what it's about. It's like he immediately starts asking Charlie questions. Does your wife drink? Does your wife do this? Has she ever been violent with you? Has she ever done this? And suddenly it's like, well, I don't want to answer these questions. You know, he knows there's more depth to their relationship than that, but then all of a sudden everything that she's ever done, every argument they've had, every spat they've had, they suddenly become liable in this really like aggressive situation where everything goes. And they do get really petty with each other at some point, especially one scene while they're in court. And I think especially Nicole's lawyer is very like sort of Laura Dern, incredible actress, by the way. I mean, you knew that. But you know, the amount of shit that they say is so like catty and direct, and it brings up so much like traumatic stuff for each person. But in court, it all goes, and it's just really upsetting to have to see. But yeah, it's a really tragic movie, but it's also very uplifting, and I think it has an incredible ending as well that sort of brings all of those different elements together, and I really, really enjoy watching it. I've seen it like countless times. The soundtrack by fucking Randy Newman. Oh, I'm gonna cry thinking about it. Da, 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 da. Oh god, it's very sad. But anyway, you know, it is what it is. Kora-chan, thank you very much for the Aka Super. That's super sweet of you to say. Thank you. All right. That is my thoughts on Marriage Story. We got another 9 movies to get through, so like, God, yeah, I was wondering how I was going to fill up a stream just mentioning 10 movies, but God, I feel like I can do it. Okay. And that was number 10. Moving on to number 9. This My number 9th favorite movie of all time is... Anyone take a guess? Anybody at all? Any guesses? I bet one person's gonna say it immediately. It's not the Lorax. But it does begin with L. It's the Lighthouse. So I'm going to talk about the Lighthouse for a little while. I'm going to put on some different music because this is a spooky movie. This is a spooky movie. Hold on. This is a spooky movie. We need some spooky music. Hold on. God, I wish I could just like throw copyright law to the wind and play the soundtrack from each film while I'm talking about it. That'd make me so happy, but sadly it's not a choice. Not something I can choose to do. Where? Hold on. Hang on. There you go. So, I have to say, The Lighthouse, and the first time that I watched it, might be one of my favorite cinema experiences that I've had in my life. The Lighthouse is... I would say that the fact that films only have limited runs in cinemas, and that after a while, some people may never get to experience what it's like to watch that film in a cinema, I think that is an absolute tragedy, because watching this in a theater with all the lights off was magic. Pure magic. The most obvious thing about this film is that it is shot on... It's not even like a retroactive choice. Like some films think, oh, you know, maybe if we edit it to be black and white, it'll be kind of cool. This film, the first line in the script says, this film will be shot on black and white film, and it will be presented in a 1:1.1 aspect ratio. Or I think that's it. It's around that. It's a squarish aspect ratio. So it looks very old. It looks very period accurate, right? But... The thing I love about the way this is presented is that when the film is black and white, this film is so dark. Not dark, I mean, it's dark tonally, yes, but visually it's extremely dark as well, like very dark visually. And so what you wind up running into is that sometimes in brighter scenes it is very square and boxed in, and that adds to the feeling of claustrophobia the movie presents. But what it also manages to do is that during scenes where the film is dark, suddenly the darkness bleeds to the edge of the screen. And while yes, there's nothing to the sides of the screen, it's all in a square aspect ratio, when the rest of the frame is so dark, you just forget. You just lose yourself in that, in just whatever image is on the screen at the moment, and it makes it feel so much more dreamlike, like it's dragging you into whatever it's trying to talk about. It was, in a way, very innovative, especially the way the dialogue is written and the way it's described. The, what am I trying to say? The director, Robert Eggers, from what I know, he studied real lighthouse keepers and managed to write down... and studied a lot of their writings and their language. And so I honestly think most times when I show people this film, I tell them to turn on subtitles because it can be difficult to understand what the fuck they're saying, but that's fine, you know. It's a very interesting film. So I'll turn on, it's not spoiler territory yet, you know, like this, nothing like that. But essentially, The Lighthouse, for those who haven't seen it, is a film about two lighthouse keepers. It's about Willem Dafoe, and it's about Robert Pattinson. And I won't say the names of the characters. They go to this old... What brung ye to this damned rock? They go out to this old rock in the sea. They go to this old rock at the sea, and the two of them have to stay there for 4 weeks. For a little under a month, they have to stay together. And over time, things just get weird. So I'm going to turn on spoiler warning. The Lighthouse is a film, I would say, that tackles an assload of themes. So I think it's sort of difficult to explain, but I'll sort of mention some of my favorite things about it first, and then if anything comes to mind, I'll kind of go about that. But I think that one of my favorite things, obviously, again, like Marriage Story, the performances really do carry this film wholeheartedly. And they don't necessarily carry it because every aspect of it is genuinely extremely powerful. But Robert Pattinson is, as we've always known, not just a vampire. He is an incredible talent. Like, I can't really describe how much I love what he does with his character, how much darkness there is in his character, and how much he brings that out, how much he sort of... The scenes... it's kind of difficult to talk about, but essentially he represents, I think, a lot of really negative masculine traits. And so what he has is there's a lot of anger in him. He's very easy. He has an ego. He's very easy to sort of anger. And that works very well with Willem Dafoe's character, who is, like, very difficult to get through to and will constantly be testing him. You know, there's one great scene early on which sort of really sets up their dynamic where Willem Dafoe says, "Take the oil barrel to the top of the lighthouse. Leave it there for when I'm ready to take it down," and all that. And he takes this humongous barrel and he drags it up these stairs and goes, "Gung, gung," and it's, you can tell how fucking heavy it is. And he's getting so angry. He's like, like bringing this thing upstairs. And then right when he gets it to the top, he's like, and then Willem Dafoe has been stood there the entire time, and he says, "Oi, took ye long enough, oi," and he hands him a very small canister. He's like, "Bring this up next time. It'll make it easier on your legs. Now, just remember to take that big boy back down when you found it," and all that kind of shit. And it's just, he immediately starts testing the fuck out of Robert Pattinson, and you can, like, their dynamic is so weirdly homoerotic, but in a really fun way. Hang on. I want to read out one of his monologues. Hold on. So, the Lighthouse. What is it? Get swabbing monologue. Okay. So they have an argument where Willem Dafoe goes up to Robert Pattinson and he says, "Oi, you haven't been swabbing this properly. You've been neglecting your duties, lad. Don't deny it." And he's like, "What do you call this?" He's like, "I swabbed it this morning." He's like, "Nah." He's like, "Nah, you didn't." And they have this argument, and Robert Pattinson says, "Oh, I said I swabbed it. I swabbed it all right." And then Willem Dafoe says, and I'm going to read this out because I think it's beautiful. This is the writing in the movie. "And I say you did nothing of the sort. And I say you swab it again and you swab it proper like this time, and you'll be swabbing it 10 times more after that. And if I tells you to pull up and apart every floorboard and clapboard of this here house and scour 'em down with your bare bladed knuckles, you'll do it! And if I tells you to yank out every single nail from every mold and nail hole and suck off every speck of rust till all them nails sparkle again like a sperm whale's pecker, and then carpet the whole light station back together from scrap and then do it all over again, you'll do it! And by God, by golly, you'll do it smiling, lad, because you'll like it. You'll like it because I says you will. Contradict me again, and I'll dock your wages. You hear me, lad? Now swab, dog, swab!" And Robert Pattinson, looking defeated, he says, "Aye, sir." Oh, the writing in the film is fucking incredible. The monologues, and Willem Dafoe gives a career best performance, and Willem Dafoe, as we know, is one of the greatest actors working today. We all know this. This is a fact. These two actors are powerhouses and are opposite each other. What I love so much about The Lighthouse is the fact that I would say it's one of the only... Thank you very much, Silly Goose, for the super. Oh, Rob Pattinson talking about steak. Yeah. Oh, I don't even need to look up that monologue. It's like, "I want a steak! I want a goddamn steak! If I had a steak, a raw, bloody steak, I could fuck it." And then Willem Dafoe processes this strange thing he says. He's just, "You don't like me cooking?" It's like, "Oh, don't be such an old bitch." It leads into what I'm saying, basically. The Lighthouse is one of the only films I've seen that balances horror and comedy perfectly. One of my pet peeves is when someone tries to say, yeah, this is a quote-unquote horror comedy. What they're really saying is that it's a comedy with gore, right? Let's think about a movie like Zombieland. Zombieland is a really fun film, but it's not scary. It's not a horror movie. There are some intense bits, and it's definitely got some gore in it with the zombies, but it's not scary. The Lighthouse is scary through and through. It has this immense sense of I really like how I've watched YMS's review of this movie a bunch of times. I really like how he puts it. It's a constant rising sense of tension and chaos that never really lets up. It always makes you feel tense. But at the same time, the atmosphere in the movie is so weird that when comedy happens, it is still funny. There is levity and there is lightness, but it never stops feeling scary because the humor is so bizarre. You've got these really strange scenes where these two will be actively at each other's throats, strangling each other, trying to kill each other, and then all of a sudden, right after that, it'll cut to them sharing a drink, and then they're like cuddling each other. And I remember one of my favorite scenes is them yelling at each other and suddenly just running at one another. They try and fight each other. They go for a punch, and then suddenly they just sort of fall into each other's arms, and they're like, and they start laughing, and then they start doing a little slow dance. Hang on. The Lighthouse slow dance song. What is the slow dancing scene? What is the song? Sing together. They have a bunch of songs. There's one that goes, "Do to let me go." They sing a lot of sea shanties and all that kind. How we got back to the woods last year. That's one. I wanna sing that in the way that Willem Dafoe does it. How we got back to the woods last year lyrics. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Oh, I really want to see this. I really want to sing that. To share my pillow. Something like that. Hold on. I'll find it. It's a really good scene where they sort of... Hang on. I'll mute it. I'll load it on YouTube. No, I'll mute it. Hang on. No, not like the proper dancing scene. I want the little slow dancing one. Yeah, oh, it's... but essentially... Willem Dafoe, or like Rob Pattinson, falls into Willem Dafoe's arms and they start genuinely slow dancing around each other. And he's like, "Oh, Mikali, oh, go out to share my pillow." And he's doing this beautiful little song. And then they genuinely end. They look at each other and they genuinely are about to pull one another in for a kiss. And then suddenly they just sort of stop, look down. Willem Dafoe pulls up his fists and he's like, "Come at me, boy. Come at me and fight me." And they start fucking attacking each other. It's so bizarre. But even though these characters are pieces of shit and they're impossible to like, you just love them. They're so bizarre and so weird in every fucking way. But you want to see what happens next. And Robert Pattinson has so much darkness to him, and Willem Dafoe is always trying to prod it out of him. And one of my favorite scenes is when Robert Pattinson is like really wanting to sort of spill his beans, like tell Willem Dafoe what he's done wrong. And spoiler warning, you know, obviously because we got that on. By this point, it's been revealed that Willem Dafoe's name is Thomas Wake, and then Robert Pattinson's name is Ephraim Winslow, right? And Winslow really wants to confess something. And he says, "Don't go spilling your beans to me, lad. I don't want ye guilty conscience," and all that kind of shit. And then he goes and he tells this story and he says, it's like, you know, I didn't like this guy. I didn't like him at all. And then there's I can't remember what the line is, but he says something about kind of shoving him into a sea of logs while he was up in Canada. And he looks up at me, he says, "Tom, you dog." And after that, he went away and he was dead. And all I said was I thought I could use me a smoke. So I did it. And that was that. And after that, so that's it. And he kind of looks into the camera almost. He's like, and then the music kind of cuts. The ambience cuts. And this is a very ambient movie. There's a lot of ambient sound, wind, music, everything. And it's suddenly all silent. And then from the corridor you hear, wait, hold on. "Why'd you spill your beans, Tommy? Why'd you spill your beans?" fades, and then there's this creeping ambience that comes back in, and I think from that point on, the film becomes immensely more chaotic, because Robert Pattinson, Ephraim Winslow, his guilt is then on the outside, and it's for everyone to see, and we know the kind of person that he is. And it's sort of in the lead up to the film's climax, which is, oh my god, I can't get enough of how incredible. Watching the ending of The Lighthouse is like that Mr. ASMR. I won't mention what it is, because even if people are watching past the spoiler warning, even if they haven't seen it, I won't even mention it, because the ending is a work of fucking brilliance. But there's so much about The Lighthouse that I feel like I could go into and analyze. There's so much about the I think overall, people say it's an allegory for the Icarus story. People say that it's a, sort of a commentary on masculinity, especially given how often Robert Pattinson is jerking off. But like, it's a really incredible film where Robert Pattinson gets to fuck a mermaid, and all sorts of different things happen, and I love it. Watching it for the first time, not knowing what was going to happen, being drawn into the screen, the blackness and the darkness bleeding to the edges. I've never had so much fun watching a film in my life. And I actually went with some friends back in the day, with my roommates, you know, the ones I played D&D with, like back when we first met, when we saw this film. And it was my recommendation because I really wanted to see it after I'd heard how good it was. And they genuinely said, please never take us to see something like that again. Because it's really disturbing. And I was like, I just knew the movie had worked. But yes, that was The Lighthouse. So I really love it, and I would say that there's so much about this movie to enjoy, and I would really encourage you all to check it out if you get the chance. Okay, I think it's beautiful. It's a really, really beautiful movie and has so much genuine artistry to it. Oh, good, Rocco, I'm glad you're having fun. I'm having a fucking blast. This is like, can you imagine how beautiful it is to just have this audience of people who really want to listen to you talk about things you're passionate about? I can't get enough of it. But yes, so that's The Lighthouse. What is next, I wonder? Aha! Okay. So the spoiler warning is going to be up pretty much the entire time. Have a chance to see this movie together, Moy and Chen? I'd like to. Wetbag, thank you for the super as well. I'd very much like to. Okay. So sorry, thank you for the super as well. Okay. Here we go with number 8. Vox Akuma's 8th favorite film of all time is, and I'm using lowercase intentionally, Mother! This movie is very divisive. Ivy Mars, thank you very much for the supers, guys. This movie is very divisive. A lot of people love it, and a lot of people hate it. That is exactly the kind of movie that I love. Not Mother, the Korean movie. This is Darren Aronofsky's Mother. It came out back in 2017. Mother. Oh boy. So I will give a brief synopsis, and then I'm turning on the spoiler warning, okay? Mother. Oh, Jan Chestnut, thank you very much for the Akasupa. I'm glad you're having fun. So Mother is a movie about Jennifer Lawrence and her husband, who is played by Javier Bardem. Their names in the movie are never specified. They say that, what is it? Like, Javier Bardem's name is him, and Jennifer Lawrence's name is just Mother, right? The film is essentially about Jennifer Lawrence, who has this house in the woods, and she loves this house. She is painting it every day. She's constructing it every day. Her pride and her joy is building this house that her and her husband can live in. And her husband is a writer who is struggling a little, and he really wants to have some genuine experiences so that he can study people more and that he can feel more inspired to write. And now I'm going to turn on the spoiler warning. I love Mother because it is a movie that is symbolic but doesn't try to... The experience of watching Mother isn't figuring out what the hell is going on. It's knowing what's going on and seeing the way that it describes things, right? So I'm going to tell you right now that this is confirmed. This is completely confirmed. Like, the director has confirmed that this is what the film is about. This film is an allegory for the birth and death of the Earth. And it does so through an allegory not just of creation, but also of philosophy, right? Guys, like, it's not my fault if I tell you what it means. I have the spoiler warning on screen, okay? And uses a collapsing relationship as a direct allegory for the Earth. So I'll tell you what each character represents, right? Jennifer Lawrence, Mother, represents the Earth. She is Mother Nature. Her husband, Javier Bardem, is God. Sooner or later in the film, people start showing up to their house. They are played by Michelle Pfeiffer and Ed Harris, and they start sort of using the house without Mother Earth's permission. They sort of sit around, they like have sex in one of the rooms, and Michelle Pfeiffer is a very sort of like catty lady that doesn't really get on with her. They are Adam and Eve, and a little later on, their children show up fighting over who owes what money and who is getting whose inheritance and all that kind of shit. One of them kills the other. They are Cain and Abel. And sooner or later, more and more people start showing up. And the most important, in my opinion, the most important piece of symbolism in the film is the fact that after meeting these human beings, God, or her husband, winds up finding his inspiration, and he writes a poem. We never get to read this poem, but it is supposedly one of the most beautiful works of art that anyone in the film has ever been able to read before. He writes it, Jennifer Lawrence reads it, and she says, "My God, it's beautiful." And people from far and wide start flocking to this house to read this scripture. And yes, that is the Bible. And obviously it's very critical of religion, which obviously is not for everybody, but I think it's such an interesting way of looking at this kind of a story in a way that we humans can understand in a really personal way, because it's about a marriage, it's about family, it's about love, but it uses it to tell a story that's so much bigger than that, right? And right at the end, there are hundreds of people flocking to this house. There are wars that break out. The walls are knocked down by cannons. And this movie gets really, really fucking disturbing near the end. I mean, I don't even need to mention that she is, for the second half of the film, she is pregnant, and there's baby Jesus. We all know what happened to poor baby Jesus. It gets very, very, very violent near the end. Like, genuinely one of the most upsetting films that I've seen, but it does so in a way that is extremely impactful. And my favorite part, I think, is how chaotic the ending is in a way. It's not a horror movie as such. It is a film that doesn't make you scared. It makes you stressed. How many of you, give me a 1 in chat, how many of you have been in an experience where you have, whether it's your house or your family's house, someone invites guests over and they start fucking with everything? They're not respectful of your space. They will get pots and pans out. They will randomly start cooking. They'll do this. They'll knock something over. They'll do random shit that you just aren't fucking comfortable with. You know, it's your space and you've put the work in to make it beautiful, and they start rearranging shit and they just make themselves at home no matter whether or not you've given them permission to do that. That is, well, it's saying that is the place, that is what a human being, that's our place in Mother Earth's sacred home. You know, she's built it the way she wants, and we come over and we start fucking it up. And by portraying Mother Earth as a vulnerable, anxious, and stressed woman who has a baby on the way and loves her home, it really makes that relationship that we have to the Earth fucking personal, and it really hurts to see. Like, it's not a film that's about like trying to figure out what all the different symbolism means. It's about showing you very clearly what the symbolism is about, and just showing you, yeah, this is this in a really straightforward manner. This is that. And it does so in, I think, a really effective way. And spoiler warning, the film ends with everyone just hounding her down. Her baby is dead in a really vicious, gruesome sort of blood ritual, and her husband is no longer helping her, and she runs down into the basement and she sets the gas boiler alight, and the entire house goes up in flames. And of course, that's the rapture. That's the fucking apocalypse. It's a really, really dark and bloody movie. But then at the end, there's this whole thing about a crystal and all that kind of stuff, but at the end, God, or Javier Bardem, has just sort of rebuilds the house. Like, he just kind of clicks his fingers and the house comes back just to normal. and another woman, slightly different than Jennifer Lawrence, another actress, just rises up, and presumably the cycle begins again. And it's a very miserable and a very nihilistic ending for a film that is about, like, all of life. It's about where we come from. It's about what our relationship is to the earth, and about, it almost treats God like a very aloof, it doesn't really, like, it treats God as a very loving figure, but who is almost so preoccupied with his creation that he sort of disregards consequence. And it's sort of giving God a very human set of flaws is really interesting. You know, it's a very interesting perspective for a film, and I really enjoyed seeing it. But obviously he's something of a villain in this one because he neglects the needs of his wife, of Mother Earth, so much. It's a very, very interesting film. And I would highly recommend, you know, whether you're religious or not, I think that it's an extremely interesting film. Me personally, I'm not religious, but I find religious perspectives to be very interesting. You know, like, whether it's Christian or otherwise, you know, I think all religions are valid, and I really value people's connection to them. And so I you know, it's not for me, but I'm also, you know, really respectful of, like, the way people feel about these kinds of things. And I think Mother has an interesting perspective to offer, whether you're religious or not. You know, I'm not, but it's about a Christian story, and it is very interesting. It's difficult to tell whether, I think it's critical of religion, but it might not be. I mean, maybe Darren Aronofsky is religious, and he's just sort of approaching it from a different perspective. It's really cool. It's a very, very interesting idea for a film, and I really, really hope that a lot of you decide to go and check it out, because I love it. I think it's a very, very interesting film. Very dark, very disturbing. If you can't handle sort of violence and, you know, very, like, it's just disturbing and gory and horrible, and you should not watch it if that gets to you easily. But for those who can, it's very, very good. All right, that was Mother! And now we'll move on. We're getting into the big boys now. The big boys, the very influential ones. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. This is a fucking steamy one. And that was number 8. My number 7th favorite movie of all time is another horror movie. Under the Skin. Okay, so you guys all know that we've watched horror movies together, we've played horror games together, and since I was young, I've kind of, like, become more accustomed to horror over time. And Under the Skin is the only horror movie that I would consider to be genuine, like, at least one of the ones that I've seen. The Lighthouse is creepy and disturbing and hilarious. Under the Skin is genuinely horrifying and miserable and ugly and gross and disgusting, but beautiful in an odd way at the same time. So, without spoilers, Under the Skin is a movie about Scarlett Johansson. We have 2 Scarlett Johansson movies on here. She's a lot better than people think she is. Under the Skin is a film about Scarlett Johansson. She is an alien. She is an alien who has come to Earth and needs to eat food. She needs to eat human beings. So her role is to take the form of a beautiful young lady to seduce young men in I believe it's Glasgow in Scotland. She seduces young men, takes them back to her house, and she eats them. And that is the film. It's presented in such a... Okay, before I go on, I will pause for a second, the music. I need to talk about this film's soundtrack before I talk about anything else. It is, and I will not take debate, it is the best horror soundtrack of all time. I have never heard a soundtrack that is more ear-piercing and gross and tense than this one. It is so just... How many of you guys have seen the film or have listened to the soundtrack? It is the best horror soundtrack that I have heard personally. The first, 10 minutes are just odd shots of her driving around in Scotland looking for victims, and the soundtrack is going... with this creaking, awful violin. Oh, God. I would highly recommend Highly recommend. If it's like, if you guys can stomach it, have a look for the soundtrack, because I stand by it being the best horror soundtrack, at least to my knowledge. It's so terrifying from beginning to end, and I'm going to turn spoilers on now. So spoiler warning, but the film is presented in a really interesting way. So you don't really see her like open her mouth and bite down on people. It's not very literal in that sense. When she and her spaceship as such is not really a spaceship. It's a purely black void. It's really interestingly shot. It's a black void where the floor is this thick black liquid, where the entire thing is purely black like the void, but every character in it is really well lit. So it's a very surreal look, right? And then when the men she has walk through it, there's a lot of nudity, you know, see these men just like butt-ass naked, and they start walking through, and she is walking effortlessly over this like floor of sludge, and then all of a sudden the man begins sinking into it, and he keeps sort of trudging towards her like he's hypnotized, and he slowly sinks and sinks and sinks down into this black sludge. And that's that. There is no big jump scare. There's no Vox Akuma Merman ASMR moment where he goes, ha! Nothing like that. He just sinks into this black goop and disappears, and it's terrifying. Even more terrifying, still spoilers, is this moment where we meet a second victim, and the second victim goes under, and he is underneath, and still alive, underneath this black goo, and he's looking around, and he's trying to figure out, like, where the fuck am I? And he sees the body. I'm going to turn this music off. We need ambience for this. He sees the body of someone else who she had killed earlier. Someone we saw earlier on in the film. And it's this blue sort of bag that's floating in the void, and its eyes are empty and lifeless, and it's just sort of bobbling around like a balloon underwater, and he sort of is drawn to it. He sort of walks up and he slips towards it, and then all of a sudden the music goes and he is compressed into a little, like, he had all of the meat in his bones is gone in an instant, and he is crushed into a little, like, fucking raisin of a man, like that. That, I think, is one of the scariest things I have seen in a film. It gets inside your fucking soul, that moment, because the tension building up to it is so much. And there is no one watching that who hasn't seen the film before who is expecting that to happen. It just, he just gets scrunched up like a fucking accordion and becomes a little blob of skin floating around in, you know, just floating around in the sea with no flesh. He's just skin, and you can only imagine that that's how she's eating these people, is that they sink into this blob of darkness and their flesh disappears and they become just a little pile of skin floating around until eventually it just dissolves. It's a really fucking disturbing film. And would you even believe it? Still spoilers. Would you even believe it? But that Jellycat toast, why did that make you hungry? That's disturbing. I don't know. Thank you for the gifted members. And Piltcat, thank you for the super as well. It's so disturbing. But then towards the end of the film, there is genuine, like, character given to Scarlett Johansson, this alien. There is genuine... She almost falls in love with a human being. And there's this dilemma where she tries eating human food to see if she doesn't need to live this life anymore. And she realizes she can't. She has to eat humans in order to survive. It's so bizarre. And the film never sacrifices its dark tone. It never sacrifices that horrible feeling. And yet it's like, it acknowledges that the relationship between this cannibalistic alien and a human is horrifying, but it still explores it in a way that feels genuine and understandable, but also it never acts like what you're witnessing isn't weird and gross and horrible. I stand by the fact that Under the Skin is one of the most horrifying films that I have seen. I love it very dearly, and I would want for all of you to watch it if you can stomach it. It's a very scary film. It does not have jump scares. It's not the kind of film that will, like, it's not the kind of film that is going to try and catch you off and be a thrill ride. It is a slow burning, gross, disgusting romp through a really, it's a horrible film. It is a horrible experience, but that's what a horror movie should be. It should endeavor to make you feel disgusted and wrong and should stick in your head for weeks, and that is exactly what this film did. It is, I would say, the scariest film I have seen, and I would highly encourage you all to watch it if you can stomach it. God, we're going on about these films for a fucking while. Like Jesus Christ. Ivy, thank you for this. Can we watch along? I would love to watch that. I would love to. We need to have like a horror night where we watch a bunch of films back to back, like Lighthouse, Under the Skin, and all those. All right. Moving on. Number 10. Not number 10. Number 6. Oh, this is a good one. This is a This is sort of, people consider it sort of a gateway drug for foreign films, and I think that it really stands up as that. It's a lot of people's first Korean film, and it was mine, and ever since then I've really wanted to sort of explore more when it comes to Korean cinema. But this is Oldboy. Specifically Oldboy 2003, the one directed by Park Chan-wook, starring Shwe Min-sik. No, it's not Parasite. I love Parasite, but Oldboy was the original gateway into Korean cinema. Press 1 in the chat. Who of you have seen Oldboy? Yes, I thought a lot of you might have seen it. The ending of Oldboy. All right. I think I'm going to turn on spoilers right from the beginning for Oldboy. So, Oldboy, in synopsis, is a movie about a man who is kidnapped. He is an alcoholic. He is not really present in his daughter's life. He's kind of overweight. He's not really very proud of himself, not living the best life he could be. But then one day, he is just kind of kidnapped, and he doesn't know why. He is imprisoned in this place where he stays for, I believe it's 15 years. He is trapped in this strange hotel room where he's fed on dumplings every single day. He becomes sick of them, and during that time, he trains, he practices, he gets stronger, and he becomes so fueled and so obsessed with obtaining revenge. Kabata and Wet Gloves, thank you very much for the super. Eventually, after those 15 years are up, he suddenly wakes up on a roof somewhere and is set free. And after that, the only thing he knows is that he wants to get revenge on whoever it was that did that to him. Oldboy is a pretty twisted movie, and what's amazing about it is that it doesn't have that high of a budget. Saki, thank you for the super. What Oldboy 2003 budget? 3 million USD. That is not a lot of money for a film. For a film of this scale, with this much action, the action in this film is quite insane. The action in this film, there's a corridor sequence where where the main character Desu, the main character breaks into this place where he was imprisoned, and he has to fight a load of thugs back to back. And the choreography is ridiculous. It is set in a tight corridor, so the enemies approaching him one by one makes sense and is justified, and it's all done in one continuous take, and the direction of the way these actors carry themselves is so believable and realistic because you see them getting worried, you see them getting tired. He's not a perfect fighter. He's very skilled and very strong because of the amount of time he spent training, but he's not perfect. He gets a knife in the back and he stumbles around, and then he feels pain, and he sort of uses the weight of the thugs to kind of carry them into one another. It's an incredible scene. And it also has one of the best torture scenes that I've seen in cinema. Saki Korea and Who Cares, thank you very much for the supers, guys. It has one of the best torture scenes I've seen in the film. I've mentioned this on stream before. He tries to get information out of the person who owns the facility where he was kept. And, okay, very violent, warning, I'm going to talk about something kind of violent, okay? He gets information out of him by tying him to a chair. He plays some really beautiful classical music, and he puts the back end, the sort of the claw end of a hammer, and starts wrenching out his teeth one by one. This is incredibly effective as a torture scene because every single person alive knows what it's like to feel pain in their teeth. Tooth pain is something we've all experienced. Whether you've bitten down on ice cream too hard, had any kind of toothache, knocked your teeth against something, it's always painful. And he just wrestles, he just sort of puts the hammer into this man's mouth and just wrenches the teeth clean out of his mouth, just and it is so hard to watch, but it is so effective. And through that, you get more and more insight into our main character, how driven he is for revenge, how anything that he will do, he'll do anything in order to obtain that revenge. He's not very much, yeah, thank you for the super. And one thing that I find so interesting about this film is that it had a remake in 2013, which was not good at all. Spike Lee film, not very good at all. Stars Josh Brolin, and it's an American remake. But the thing is that makes it so poor. There are a lot of things that make it bad, but one of the main things, in my opinion, is how American protagonists don't really work in the same way as protagonists in Asian cinema. Desuo is a character purely driven by revenge. He has no, positive moral aspects to him. I mean, he's a likable character. We want to see him succeed because we want to see him get revenge. But his revenge is driven by violence. He doesn't have anyone he's trying to protect. He is just trying to kill somebody because he's mad. That is his motivation. In America, in Western cinema, we don't really get that. The motivation of Josh Brolin in the remake is that he has a daughter he's trying to protect, because I think that American film studios assume that no one will relate to or understand a main character who doesn't have relatable motivations. Thing is, I do think that revenge is relatable. We all have people that we're pissed off with. We all have people who have done us hard. And we all have intrusive thoughts sometimes, like, oh, I wonder what it'd be like if I could get revenge. Oh, imagine that, imagine this, imagine that. Dark thoughts, intrusive thoughts, and no one should really act on them. But at the same time, I think it's silly to act as though no one has those thoughts. This is a guy who acts on them in Oldboy 2003, sorry, and that's important, I think that it takes a lot of self-reflection to really relate to a character who has no real moral, he has no real redeeming factors. He's violent, he's angry, he, is generally just a pretty inconsiderate guy. Kind of a womanizer as well. I mean, it's all right not to relate to that, but at the same time, it's still, there's a lot of aspects to him that it's really important to understand. And that ending. Oh my god. I don't know if I want to say how it ends, because it's a lot to explain. But all you need to know is that he goes through this whole process to find who it is that's exacting revenge on him, and when he does, things are bad. Things are very bad. Things are bad for him. Things are bad for the villain. Things are bad for the romantic interest in the film. Things are bad, bad, bad all the way across. Do I remember Mido? Oh, of course I do. I mean, everything that happens with her is... oh, God, I should talk about that. Yeah, the squid. I mean, the best illustration of what this character feels is that one of the first things he does when he wakes up is he goes to get some food, and he goes into... And he meets the main lady, the leading lady in the film, Mido, and she's a waitress there, and he asks, can I have a live octopus or a live squid? And in the film, they have a real live squid, and he just takes it in his hand and he eats a live octopus or squid. I can't remember which one it is. He eats it whole. Just... And he chews down on it, and he's killing it. It's violent. And that prop is a real animal, and the actor eats it and kills it. It's horrible to watch, but it is a expression of how desperately he desires to kill, how much anger he's feeling, and how ruthlessly he will pursue his revenge. Nothing really sets it up quite like just being handed a living animal and feeling no other desire but then to not even just eat it, but to simply kill it. He's a really fucked up character, but in a way, you will, after being with him through his imprisonment, it's impossible not to root for him. And that's a very difficult balancing act to get. Creating an anti-hero who doesn't have some kind of magical other motivation. You know how, like, most anti-heroes aren't even anti-heroes. Like, they're opposed to supposedly, like, the big main characters, but they have such typically, like, understandable motivation that it makes them barely anti-heroes. They're just heroes on their own journey. And a true anti-hero is a villain that you follow. A true anti-hero is someone like this, who his goal is to kill, his goal is to take revenge, and you follow him because he's the main character. And there is value in that, and that is interesting, and I love that. Eating squids live is quite common in Korea. I mean, I imagine it probably is, but the way this guy does it is pretty ridiculous. I mean, it's an entire squid and he just tears it apart like a fox. It's brutal. Live octopus and Korea, not the whole thing chopped, right? That's the difference. Yeah, no, this is an entire squid and he just eats it live. It's pretty ridiculous. It's interesting to know that it's more normal than I would have thought. Oh, the movie's got a beautiful soundtrack as well that sort of conveys a lot of the pain the characters are feeling. To be honest, I haven't seen the film in a little while. I feel like I would have more to say if I had, but yeah, it's a really beautiful film. And if you haven't made the jump to watch Korean cinema yet, I would think it's a really good place to start. That and Parasite, but I do think Oldboy is in my mind, I think Oldboy is a bit better. But it's certainly my favorite because I kind of prefer it. But Parasite's still very, very good. All right, that is number 6, and now we are into my top 5. Oh, a classic Le Film. There are going to be, if you ever run into a film student, a lot of them are going to wind up saying how much they love this film. Kind of predictable, but I think it deserves it. My number 5 favorite movie of all time is 2001, A Space Odyssey. This is a very, very unique film. Extremely unique. And even more so considering the time at which it was released. This film came out, I believe, in 1968. And it looks like it could have come out in the last decade. It is a beautifully shot film. And really just so far ahead of its time. Not just visually, but in terms of its themes. They predict so much. They predict Skype in this movie. I think my favorite aspect, I'm going to turn the spoiler warning on because fuck it, but my favorite aspect to this film is how every aspect of it is in service of Hal. Those of you who don't know, Hal is the AI. I mean, you should know how old Hal is, but Hal is the AI aboard the spaceship, and he is extremely intelligent and only wants to do what is right for the mission. This film aims to, in my view, this film aims to get the viewer to empathize with a lifeless AI. And it does this through the filmmaking itself. This film, it might be the slowest film that you will ever watch. And I'm aware that there were probably a lot more films released since that are even slower. But this is a very, 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 very slow movie. Most space movies, when they show you a scene... So there's one scene in this film where one of the antenna on this spaceship is broken. Or it's not broken, but it's malfunctioning. And one of the astronauts, Dave, he has to get in a little pod and he has to go and repair it. In most sort of modern space movies, what you would wind up seeing is like a little bit of music would play, like a da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and they would fly out, and it would be very quick, and you'd have a little thing, and then suddenly the information, like, a twist, it would be relayed to him, and then he would be like, yeah, I went out there and I found this, and blah, 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 blah. 2001? Not so. 2001, let me look this up. How long is the antenna repair scene in 2001 A Space Odyssey? Because it's long. I don't think anyone really... A35 unit, that's it, yeah. But essentially, it's a... Hi, Mary, hello! It's a long film. It's a long film. And that scene especially is long because they show the spaceship. They show the door opening very slowly. They show the ship creeping out very slowly. They show the ship rising above. They show the little pod rising above the ship very slowly. They show it turning very slowly, walking towards it very slowly. They cut back. They communicate very painstakingly about the details of how they're going to fix the thing. And this is one just small way that they try to communicate what it's like to be lifeless and inhuman. And there's a big theme in this film about humanity's ascension. A big theme in this film is about humanity progressing from being from being what we are, these sort of emotional, fleshy creatures, to being something greater than that, the next step beyond humanity. And I think there's a argument to be had that the film almost wants to make you believe that the future lies in becoming like this. However, there's sort of a marriage, in a way, of the inhuman and the human, in a sense, with a scene that I'll talk about later, which is one of my favorite scenes from any film. So what you wind up having is this this experience where the film, if you can sit there and you can stomach waiting this long, this glacial pace, you will slowly be hypnotized, and you'll slowly start to believe what it is that Hal, this AI, experiences on a day-to-day, right? You slowly go through this experience, and you almost start to relate to him. You almost start to understand what's happening. And these humans are doing these slow robotic tasks. Their acting is also slow and robotic intentionally. You know, they are brilliant actors, but, you know, there's not a lot about them that's terribly different from the way that Hal talks. Open the pod bay doors, Hal. I'm sorry, Dave, but I'm afraid I can't do that. The whole film is very lacking in emotion in a way, and so the AI becomes humanized in the way. The AI is so similar to the way that the humans act, and we in ourselves sit in a similar way to, we sit and view things in a similar way to the AI itself. Beyond that, my favorite scene, I think, it makes a contender. It's in contention for my favorite scene in any film. I don't know if I'd be able to say that confidently, but it's definitely one of my favorites. After all the chaos, Hal gets rid of one of the astronauts in a really, really chilling scene where he sort of takes control of one of the arms that an astronaut is using to fix the antenna, and all of this sort of... I forgot to mention, okay, the sound design is extremely immersive as well. When you're inside a... when an astronaut has his helmet on, the sound is from the inside, and most of what you can hear is a soft heartbeat and like a whoosh for like minutes at a time. It's really, really intense to watch, but in a scene where one of the astronauts gets just yeeted into space, all of that sound cuts out, and I really like how so many other films since then... 2001 probably wasn't the first one to do this, but definitely a pretty notable example of making you jump with the absence of sound rather than with a big dramatic like which a lot of films in this era were doing, would have like a whole score for it. 2001, no music in that moment. It's just sound, ambience, Foley, and then and you watch this body tumble into the depths of space. Fucking terrifying. But that scene in itself is not as terrifying as my favorite scene in the film, which is the death of HAL 9000. I I am covered in goosebumps when I so much as think about that scene, let alone when I watch it. It's not emotional, but it almost makes me cry because I think it's so perfectly put together. So the film reaches near its conclusion, like the sort of the villain is dealt with when Dave goes into Hal's memory banks and he begins unlocking it. He begins slowly taking away Hal's humanity manually, bit by bit. He unscrews these little pods and the hard drives begin disconnecting. And Hal, in this, I'm going to turn the music off. All you can hear in this moment is spaceship ambience, just shh, a few beeps and boops here and there. And Hal, in his impossibly emotionless voice, begging for his life. It's so impactful. Just, please stop, Dave. I'm afraid. I'm afraid, Dave. My mind is going. I can feel it. I can feel it. And the entire film has been presented in that exact same way. The human beings talk like that. The camera work is stoic and isolated and soft, and it has pretty much no emotional significance whatsoever. It's so cold and sterile. And so when it gets to this point where the most emotionally devastated character is an AI with no feelings, that is a work of genius, and it's that reason why 2001 is one of my favorite films. And just listening to Hal slow, like, it's so slow. It's such a slow and painful death. Just listening to him go, stop, Dave, please. I don't want to die. My mind is going. I can feel it. I can feel it. And then his memory disappears. I can't remember quite what he says. Hang on, I can read this out. I want to do this. Hold on. HAL 9000 death speech. Yeah, I just looked this up, and there's an article that says Hal, the computer, is undoubtedly the most complex character in the film. Let me try and find the actual thing, because I want to read it out. Evelyn, thank you very much for the super. Oh God, yeah, no. So this is more of what he says, and it's like he's trying to reason with Dave. It's like he's desperate. He's trying to sort of, but he says it in that very cold voice. I know I've made some very poor decisions recently, but I can give you my complete assurance that my work will be back to normal. I've still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the mission, and I want to help you. Pause. Dave, stop. Stop, will you? Stop, Dave. Will you stop, Dave? Stop, Dave. I'm afraid. I'm afraid, Dave. Dave, my mind is going. I can feel it. Oh, and that's coming from an emotionless robot. It's incredible, like, how much that makes you feel. His, like, slow death. I want to see where HAL 9000 death script. I want to see what he says after that, because it's really sad. Really, really sad. Oh, there's the script. You can find the script online. Hold on. It looks like the script is different from the original. But essentially, after a little while, his memory disappears, and he sort of goes through and he says, I am a HAL 9000 computer. I was designed at this institution. My master taught me to sing a song. And his voice modulator, or whatever produces voice, starts to fade away. It's called Daisy. Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you. His voice gets a little deeper. It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage. I can do this. Oh, Paul. Wait, no reverb. But you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. And that's it. He's gone. Like, I will... And the end of the film, there's so much symbolism with entering the Stargate and coming back out the other side and becoming an old man and watching himself die. It's extremely surreal, but oh my god, there is nothing in that film will quite beat how agonizing it is to watch Hal slowly die. And how... I don't think Daisy is from that film specifically. I think it might have been a thing that was taught to a real computer to sing. I might be wrong. Or maybe 2001 is that culturally significant that it does come from that film and people think it's real, you know. But yeah, he sings a little song and away he goes. And the film is so palpable and so beautiful in its composition that it makes you feel a brutal sense of compassion and makes you almost cry with the death of an emotionless computer program. And that is why it's one of my favorite films. The other shit is just a bonus to me, like the obelisk, the monkeys at the beginning, the the music, the other performances, the special effects. It's all beautiful, but everything to me is in service of the way the film hypnotizes you into crying when an AI is shut down. That's all. It's so far ahead of its time, and now that I've mentioned that, I cannot wait to watch it again. It won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two. That is 2001. I had fun talking about that. I had a lot of fun talking about that. Okay, moving on. Oh, this is going to be a lot more lighthearted. Okay. Actually, I don't know if I would... Now that I've spoken about it, I don't know if I would put this next film... I might bump 2001 up a space. Because I love 2000... Now that I've talked about it, I've reminded myself of why I love 2001 that much. So I'm going to bump it up by just one space. But... Okay, so my actual number 5, I guess. Eating an Evopunk, thank you very much for the super. It's from 1892, old man. I don't know these things. See, I thought it was from real life. I thought it was. And then someone in chat confused me. Listen, I'm an old man. I can bump it up. So, my actual number 5, that I think is a better place for it, is a film that a lot of people actually don't like. But I really do like it. I think it's pretty pog. This is a film that came out back in 2016, and it's very personal to me. I like it personally, okay? I don't think it's the best movie in the world, but I love it to death, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. My number 5 favorite movie of all time is Swiss Army Man. This is one of the most fun films to watch, I think. It is just... First of all, I'll begin by talking about the soundtrack. So, no, I won't. I'll set the scene. So, Swiss Army Man is about Paul Dano, brilliant actor, who is on an island and is about ready to give up. He's about to, I guess, trigger warning. He's about to take his own life because he's stuck, stranded on an island, and he assumes that nothing is going to get better. And obviously the symbolism is rich there immediately. And then right as he's about to jump, he sees washed up on the shore a corpse. The corpse of Daniel Radcliffe wearing a suit. He thinks, at first he doesn't know, is he alive? Is he dead? He's like, oh my god, another person. And he runs up and he sees that he's dead and he sort of talks to the corpse for a little while and he says, oh, if only I just wanted to talk to somebody and maybe things wouldn't have been so bad anymore. And he hugs the body and then it goes... The corpse lets out a really disgusting fart and he's like, what? And he gets up and he goes, oh, fuck it. And he walks back to the thing and he wraps the thing around his neck again and he's ready to go. And then the corpse keeps farting. It goes... It just keeps going and going and going, and it's in the water by the beach, and so the bubbles are going everywhere, and the water is flying everywhere, and the corpse is powered so powerfully by its own farts that it drifts into the ocean like a speedboat. And Paul Dano looks at it and he goes, "Oh my god!" And then the music kicks in. This film has such a great soundtrack because it's a film about two dudes lost in the woods. And the entire soundtrack is a cappella. It's them singing. And he begins the movie singing to himself, going, da 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 da. Da, 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 da. There's a little song that his mum used to sing to him, and he sings that to himself. And then he sees his hope. The corpse is a way out. And he looks at it and he starts singing. He goes, ba 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 da 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 da, and he sings it triumphantly. He gets his rope and he ties it around Daniel Radcliffe's neck like a leash, and they sail with speed straight across the ocean, powered by his farts. And then then it goes da da ba da 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 da, and the movie title explodes onto the screen. Ba 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 da da, Swiss Army Man, and it like focuses on Paul Dano's face, and he goes yeah, and then it goes to Daniel Radcliffe's face, and he's dead. He just goes. And it has Daniel Radcliffe, and then they get back to land, and the rest of the movie is all about their relationship. And sooner or later, Daniel Radcliffe starts talking, and he learns about all of these different powers that he has. So I'll spoiler warning for that. And they start singing, and like one of my favorite little musical motifs is whenever they mention a song, like he mentions Cotton Eye Joe, like Cotton Eye Joe gets stuck in Paul Dano's head at one point while he's dragging this corpse around, because he can't leave him alone. He saved him, and so he's dragging this corpse around, and he starts going, "Friend of being for Cotton Eye Joe, I've been married a long time ago," and he's like, oh, it's always the most annoying songs that get stuck in your head. And the next song in the soundtrack is that low, like, but over the top of it, you've got, if it hadn't been for Cotton Eye Joe, I'd be married a long time ago. And it goes on like that. And then you genuinely love listening to Cotton Eye Joe in this soundtrack being sung by these two dudes. And I love Daniel Radcliffe's performance in this film as well. Like, the way he truly never stops sounding dead, even though he's talking. He's like, huh? What? No, it's fine. He's like, sort of a weird, like, just, no, no, it's okay. I'll just stay here, and then you won't have to worry about me anymore. It's like definitely, it's symbolically, definitely a projection of what Paul Dano is thinking and feeling in his insecurities. But Daniel Radcliffe really like sells it in a super convincing way. He's just this dead man in a suit, but he kind of gets up and he walks around like a shambling zombie sometimes, and then he can always just do these random little things. Like Paul Dano puts a cup in front of him. He's like, I need water, and Daniel Radcliffe just goes, and like water starts coming out of his mouth, and it's fresh drinking water and everything. And he's like, oh yeah, let's go. He can just do all sorts of things. I think there's one point where he like puts a load of rocks in his mouth, and he like cranks his arm like a gun, and then they start shooting animals by like, he can shoot rocks out of his mouth like at machine gun speed, like, and he can shoot them out at machine gun speed, and they use that to like snipe birds and have plenty of food to eat. And a lot of the film is about Paul Dano recollecting like the life that he had before he got there, before he wound up on that island. And it's really beautiful to just sort of see like, it's really beautiful to see how emotional and how loving of a person he is, and yet in life he never really had much of a chance to love anybody. Saturn and Shannon, thank you very much for the supers, guys. It's definitely a bit of a fever dream. It's a very weird film, but I will say that the music and the presentation and the editing and the comedy make this a really beautiful film to watch. It's weird, but it's fantastic. And it's so easy to watch. It's so much fun, no matter how weird it is. There's one scene where Paul Dano is explaining to Daniel Radcliffe, like, about... he calls the corpse, he calls it Manny, by the way. He's like, my name is Manny. And he's like, Manny, all right. And they kind of get to know each other. He's explaining to him what Netflix and chill is. And he's like, what? What do you do there? And it's like, well, you know, sometimes when you know someone well enough, you go home, and instead of going out for a meal or going out to watch a movie, you might stay at home and watch Netflix when you're comfortable with someone. And meanwhile, Daniel Radcliffe is looking at this magazine with, you know, a very attractive model on it, and he's looking at it, and he's like, yeah, you know, and you get to know this girl, and then eventually maybe you have an idea and you want to live together in an apartment. Maybe you take out a lease together. You start watching movies together on Netflix all the time, and then if you really want to share it with someone, maybe you'll have sex together. You know, that's what people do all the time. And then all of a sudden he notices that Daniel Radcliffe, the corpse, is hard as a fucking rock, and he's like, whoa, and he's like, what did I do wrong? What did I do? And it's like, no, you can't do that around other people. That's weird. And he's like, what? But it felt so nice. And he's like, what? And suddenly, they notice something. He shows him the magazine, and his cock makes like a... It takes the magazine away. It's like a mechanical super dick. It goes like... It takes the magazine away. And then comes the discovery. Paul Dano is like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. Because he pokes it with a stick, and it kind of moves away a bit, and then it points back at where it was pointing before. And he rotates Daniel Radcliffe on the ground, and his cock points in the same direction it was pointing before. He uses the cock as like a little sextant, and he looks up, and he looks back, and he says, Manny, I think your penis is guiding us home. And the way they make their way back to civilization, or at least closer to it, is that he carries Daniel Radcliffe bridal style with a little fishing rod made out of a stick and a piece of string, and he dangles the magazine in front of Daniel Radcliffe's face so that he's always able to see his... Yeah, sextant, exactly, wink. The cock is always guiding them home, and so he's just carrying the man with the cock pointing at home, and he carries him home. And yes, the penis is a radar, and there is a lot more weirdo shit like that that happens. But because of the emotional soundtrack, and because of how much you love the characters, and because of how well paced the movie is, all of this, like Todd Howard, all of this just works. It all just works. It's beautiful. The way that you can spend so much time just enjoying these characters and enjoying what they do together. Man. It's really incredible how they make a concept. These directors, who also, recently a lot of you have been asking me to see Everything Everywhere All at Once. I saw it the other day. I went to the cinema and I fucking loved it. Like, almost as much as Swiss Army Man, even though it's a better movie than Swiss Army Man, but Swiss Army Man's more personal to me. You know, I feel more emotional when I watch it because of the soundtrack and all that, but it's an incredible movie, and I would really insist that you guys check it out and give it a chance, because it's super weird, but I mean, there's a big portion of the film that's about being comfortable farting around people. It's like, you don't like me at all, do you? That's why you hide your farts from me. It's like, well, farting around people is weird, and people think you're weird. It's like, why does it matter what's weird? What if I want to be weird with you? And these two become, like, so genuinely emotionally invested in each other. It's super gay. It's super, super, super gay. They kiss a bunch of times. It's a super, super gay movie. So I would really insist that you guys watch it, because I think it's pretty incredible. But yeah, that's Swiss Army Man. My 5th favorite movie. 2001 is my 4th. And now I've got 25 minutes to talk about my top 3. Oh my god. All right. Here are my top 3 favorite movies. All right. Number 3 is a film that came out in 2000. Again, another film that came out in 2017. This film is called Phantom Thread. Phantom Thread is a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Paul Thomas Anderson's made a load of really fantastic films like There Will Be Blood, Punch Drunk Love, and he didn't make. Wait, hang on a minute. I'm getting his filmography mixed up with Daniel Day-Lewis, because they work together. So Magnolia, Boogie Nights, and a new one, Licorice Pizza, that came out very recently. I still have to see that. Oh, and The Master with Joaquin Phoenix, another very, very good film. This guy is so good at directing that even his weaker films are still great. So, Phantom Thread is a film about a man. I'm going to say his name, and you mustn't laugh. His name is Reynolds Woodcock. And Daniel Day-Lewis came up with this name himself because they thought it was funny, and they rolled with it. His name is Reynolds Woodcock. His name is Mr. Woodcock. And, it's turn of spoiler warning. And so, Reynolds Woodcock is a very, very rich and affluent dressmaker. Nekosaka, thank you for the super. A very affluent dressmaker in 1950s London. And he is incredibly influential in the dressmaking scene. He makes dresses for princesses. He makes dresses for royalty, nobility, everything. He is so, it's sort of the sort of thing where instead of going to a catalog and purchasing a dress from him, you would go to him as a client, and he would say, well, let's have a look at what might work for you. And then he will dip into his library of expensive fabrics and will say, I think this one will work for you. Are you more of a silver girl or a gold girl? Ah, silver, very good choice, and all that kind of stuff. He is a very sort of romantic character in a way, because I don't think there's anything, you know, I think if I were a lady, I think that having someone dote on me and treat me with romance and stitch me a dress perfectly for how he thought I was, I can't imagine something more romantic than that. And for him, everything is exactly the way that he wants it to be. By the way, this film stars Daniel Day-Lewis, and Daniel Day-Lewis, I'm confident in saying, is the greatest actor who ever lived. Daniel Day-Lewis brings his A-game in this yet again. And surprise to fucking nobody, he kills it. He is an incredible character actor who stays in character for the duration of an entire shoot, and you can fucking tell he is brilliant. And every actor in this is brilliant. Vicky Krieps, who plays his romantic interest, is brilliant, and Leslie Manville, who plays his sister, is a bad bitch, and I love her to absolute fucking death and back. Taylor ASMR, oh, that would be good. That would be good, wouldn't it? Similar in tone, I think, to the Painter ASMR, wouldn't you think? But maybe we can try that another time. But yes, so okay. So what am I trying to say here? Leslie Manville plays his sister, and she's a bad bitch, and there was this one line I used on somebody, and I ripped it straight from this film. What happened? I think it was during my therapy stream, like months and months and months ago. I think I posted like a, I don't know, I think it was someone, I think it was Reimu, she challenged me to like a fight or something, and the line that I used to respond to it was ripped straight from this film. She said, her and Reynolds get into a bit of an argument, and she says, oh, shut up, don't you try that with me, don't you pick a fight with me, you certainly won't come out alive. It'll be me who goes right through you, and it'll be you who winds up on the floor. Understood? And she just sips her tea, and he does not say a fucking word. She's incredible in this film. But essentially, the plot is that Reynolds Woodcock is a very private man who has a list of lovers but he can't seem to get married. He can't seem to find someone who sticks with him, or rather that he wants to stick with, because he is so stubborn about the way things are. He only wants things to be his way and his way only. He will have breakfast at a certain time of the day. Breakfast is the time to be quiet. If you're loud during breakfast, he will be bothered for the rest of the day. Sorry. He will make dresses the way he wants. He will go for a walk when he wants. He will only do whatever he wants. And for the most part, when a woman falls in love with him, she will try to change him. She will try to say, no, you should do things my way for once. You should do things this way, that way, whatever. But he won't. He is stubborn to a fault. That is until he meets Alma. She is a waitress at a little cafe that he goes to in, I can't remember where, it's by the sea somewhere that he goes to. And they take an interest in each other, and like he would pick up any other girl that he might want to date for a little while, they go back to his house. He makes a dress for her. She finds it very romantic and all of that. But then there's something different about Alma, and I'll put the spoiler warning back. Alma is just as stubborn as he is, and this is where the conflict in the film comes from. And I would like to insist, I want everyone listening right now to, if you have a spare monitor or another device that you can check it out on, go and find on YouTube or Spotify or whatever it is you have, the soundtrack for Phantom Thread, because this is, I would say, my favorite film soundtrack, period. The music that they give to this film is almost like another character in and of itself. It is really beautiful classical music, and surprisingly enough, composed by Johnny Greenwood, who is a member of Radiohead, which is a transition I don't think anyone would have expected, but he does it with so much tact and grace, and it's beautiful. Specifically, there are tracks called Phantom Thread 1 through 4. Phantom Thread 1 is creepy and eerie and distant. Phantom Thread 2 is melancholic and distant. Phantom Thread 3 is loud, garish, violent, sad, tragic. Phantom Thread 4 is like a eulogy. It's a small violin. Oh, I can't really get enough of the soundtrack from this film. I listen to it 24/7. It's a beautiful soundtrack to a beautiful film. And God, I'm just trying to think about what else to say about it, but essentially, we're on spoiler territory, so I can talk about it, but essentially, Alma tries anything to break this man and to get him to change for her, because she is so in love, and she will make sure that he is in love with her as well. And I mean, like, the depths she goes, I don't even know if I want to say about it, because I want us to do a watch along at some point. But what I will say is that these two have a lot of conflict in their relationship. It's very fucked up. But the thing is, I've watched this film with a number of people, and it's a kind of an even split. Some people will think that Alma is totally within her right to act the way she does, and some people think that Reynolds is also totally within his right. And some of them side with him and think that he's an innocent guy who just wants to live his life the way he wants it, and he lays out his rules, and if people don't want to follow them, then he's more than welcome to kick somebody out. And some people say that Alma is well within her right to cuss him out because he's rude and because he's selfish. And the film presents itself in such an honest way that people come away thinking lots and lots of different things until the ending, when everyone is like, oh, I don't know, even with the spoiler warning, I don't even know if I want to say it, because I know a lot of you are sticking around purely to just listen to me talk, and that's fine, but I would say I'm going to not tell you guys about the ending, because the ending is quite something, and I would let's do a watch along. We haven't done members in a little bit because of me taking a break and because of the 24-hour stream, so you know what? Fuck off. Let's do Phantom Thread as a watch along next week for members. Let's fucking do it. But yes, to avoid spoiling it, beautiful movie, even better soundtrack, some of the best acting you can see in a film. I love it, you love it, everybody loves it. Phantom Thread is my third favorite film of all time. But what could possibly beat a film like Phantom Thread? Well, I'll fucking tell you. My number 2 favorite film of all time is Whiplash, which came out in 2014. So Whiplash is a movie about Andrew, played by Miles Teller, and he's a very passionate drummer. He is convinced at all times, he says, I am going to be one of the greats. I'm going to be one of the greatest drummers you've ever seen. I am going to rise above the rest, and I am going to be one of the greats. And he is pretty good. He is pretty good. And so is Miles Teller. He's a very good drummer and convincing for someone who plays a character who is also very passionate about drumming. While at a musical conservatory school, he attracts the attention of Terrence Fletcher, played by J.K. Simmons. And KK, thank you for the gifted members. Oh, good timing right when we're talking about a watch along. That's so generous. Thank you. Thank you very much. But Jesus Christ. J.K. Simmons won an Oscar for this movie, and you can fucking tell why. Because Terrence Fletcher is a psychopath. Terrence Fletcher is convinced in all accounts that he will create the next big name in jazz. Selena, thank you for the gifted members as well. He is going to create the next big name in jazz. He will. He is going to save jazz by teaching someone so hard that he finds someone who would never be discouraged and who would become the next big thing. These two butt heads, and it's less of a music movie and more of a boxing movie. It is a fight movie because these two fight like hell, and it is insane. Terrence Fletcher, I'm going to describe, like, the way this man talks is fantastic. He will bully you for everything. He will bully you for the slightest thing. And he's an asshole for it. So sorry, thank you for the gifted members as well. He will bully you for anything. So when you first learn, Shimu, thank you for the super. When you first learn of how terrible of a person he is, what is it that he does? The band is playing. Andrew is on temporary drums. Manu, thank you for the gifted members. Damn, a lot of members. Thank you guys. Andrew is on other drums. You know, he's just Linhith. Thank you for the gifted members. You guys are insane. He's watching the other drummer do his thing, and the band is going. And suddenly he says, "Now this one really breaks my heart. We have an out-of-tune player here." Now, would the out-of-tune player care to do 50 gifted members, Tomek? What the fuck? Thank you so much. Now, would the out-of-tune player care to identify himself? Nobody says anything. Okay. Perhaps a bug flew in my ear. Tokito, thank you for the gifted members so much. The band keeps playing, and he stomps them again. He says, No. My ears are fine. We have an out-of-tune player here. I'm going to give you a chance. That out-of-tune player has a chance now to identify himself. And there it went. Now, either you are deliberately trying to sabotage my band, or you don't know that you're out of tune, which I'm afraid is even worse. And he goes around the band, and it's like he is a predator hunting for, like, his prey. He's honing in for the fucking kill. Brass, take it up. Okay. Wind. Nope. And then he asks, I think it might have actually been the brass section. He's like, bones. It's the trombones. He's here. And he asks, and he goes one by one. And it's so sad. He gets to this guy in the end, who's kind of chubby, and he says, "Tell me it's not you, Elmer Fudd." And it's so sad because it is an experience that I imagine a lot of us have with strict teachers who will pick on you for your physical traits, things you can't help, and shit like that. It's gruesome, and it's horrible, but in this film, I hate to say, it's really fucking funny. It's really funny in a really fucked up way. And the way that he comes up with these creative insults is not only so personal for people who've been through this, but works in this film so well. He says, "Can you give me give me the first 5 bars?" And he goes, he leans down with a little smile. "Do you think you're out of tune?" And he looks down at the floor. He doesn't know what to say. "There's no fucking Mars bar down there. What are you looking at?" "Do you think that you're out of tune?" And he sort of, it's shaking. This poor guy is so nervous. He looks up and he says, "Yes." And then Terrence Fletcher screams, "So why the fuck didn't you say so?" And the guy starts crying, and he comes out, and then he comes out with this banger line where he says, "Get the fuck out of here, Mets. I'm not gonna have you cast as a competition because your mind's on a fucking Happy Meal instead of on pitch." And the rest of the movie is more and more like that. It is yelling, it is loud, it is violent, it is tense. And right after that display, he looks over at the new kid, Andrew, the main character. He says, "Next up, the squeaker's on." And so he has to live up to that. But the thing is, what makes this thing so interesting is the fact that Andrew is honestly just as bad. Not in the same way, but he's an angry, violent guy, and he is really determined to get what the fuck he wants. It's an incredible film because these two, he doesn't just get bullied. No, he butts heads. They fight back. It's one of the most intense films that you can watch, and it's about music. I think it's an incredible jump scare. Honey, too loud. So I'm into what I'm talking about. I'm sorry. I'll try to be better. But yeah, it's a terrifying movie in its own way, but so good. Oh, it's so perfectly put together, and I would highly suggest that you all give it a try. Yeah, that's about all I want to say. I don't want to spoil much of it. All I will say is that, yeah, I think the third act of this film is one of the best third acts in any film. The climax is perfectly composed. It's put together beautifully, and I would really, really encourage you all to check it out. Also, he didn't win it for this film, but I believe Damien Chazelle, who directed this, is the youngest director ever to win Best Director at the Oscars for La La Land, which is pretty cool. So, it's all come down to this, and a lot of you who have been to my members' watch-alongs will know already what my favorite film is. So, drumroll please. My favorite film of all time used to be Whiplash, but now it is Call Me By Your Name. By far the most emotionally powerful movie that I have seen, and one that will make me feel warm, soft, teary-eyed every time I watch it. Call Me By Your Name is a film that, like 2001, every single element of it is in service of its message and of its experience. This film is set in Italy. I don't believe I have ever been to Italy, and yet every location in this film feels like somewhere that I've been and that I loved being in. This film is so sunny and bright, and the film that it is shot on, the actual celluloid, makes the lighting feel so bright, and that light on the food makes the food look like the most delicious food you have ever eaten. The Foley and sound design is so accurate to what is actually happening that it really is such an immersive experience that brings you right into every single scene that you're in. This film makes you feel like you are in love, and that is something pretty rare. That is something pretty rare. The film doesn't have much music, but when it does, It's beautiful. It has a Vivian, thank you for the super. It has a restrained use of music, but when it's used, it is done so to incredible effect. Obviously, the main performances are incredible. Their chemistry is incredible. Yes, you're right. The Foley is sensual in a way. You feel like you can reach out and touch the various things that are in the world, in the environment. Everything is so in your ears, but in a way that sounds gorgeous in every moment. And it's immersive to a point where it's like the realism of the environments draws you in and how much you want to be a part of it, but it's made more perfect. Norma, thank you for the super. Or don't tell me about the ending. Yes, and the peach scene. That when the film becomes more dreamlike, more nostalgic, that it feels all the more immersive and involving. The film will begin by just saying, hey, there's warm grass to touch, there are lakes to swim in, there are sports to play, there are beautiful people to dance with, there is a different country you've never been to that you want to see, there are pubs to go to, there's beers to drink, there's this, there's that. It's so unique and special. And then you move into the later parts of the film when the two main characters really start to, start canoodling. And then you get a little bit more of Sufjan Stevens, and oh my goodness, what a soundtrack that Sufjan Stevens puts together for this film. The way that his songs they always come in at just the right moments. The first one, Futile Devices, I think plays pretty much right when Elio is starting to sort of, his love and his self-awareness about what he feels for Oliver is starting to awaken. And when I sleep on your couch, I feel very safe. I do love you. And then after, obviously, the big kicker, Mystery of Love, that plays when the pair of them are exploring together without anything to worry about, just a little bit of time left to spend with one another with no prying eyes around. And of course, the ending, Visions of Gideon, when long after the pair of them have parted ways, Oliver has gone off and gotten married. Elio listens to a song, and he stares into the fire, and he has a cry. And I will say that while the scene from 2001 with Hal might be one of my favorite, might be one of my favorite scenes, a close contender, and now that I'm thinking about it, I think they're basically neck and neck for my favorite scenes. The scene with Elio's dad near the end of the film, when his father sits him down for a talk. Michael Stuhlbarg, fantastic actor. One of the most, sort of calming voices I think you can hear in a film. When he speaks with his dad, I think I cry more at this scene than I do at the ending where he stares into the fire. Because it is something that we can all learn from and something that we can all relate to. The experience of feeling the pain that we derive from love, right? Because what Elio is feeling is that he's made a mistake. He is wishing that he wasn't feeling this awful distance from someone that he loves. And the dad is getting old. He's married, yes, but he has regrets. He has, love that maybe he didn't pursue when he was young. And he reassures him that simply by feeling those feelings and simply by pursuing that love, that in and of itself is beautiful. Regardless of whether or not the pair of you got married, regardless of whether or not you wound up being friends, having felt love and having pursued love, regardless of where it resulted, that in and of itself is the most human and most beautiful thing that you can feel. and you are strong for having felt it, and you are valuable for having felt it, regardless of what happens. Love in and of itself is beautiful, no matter where it goes. And he wants his son to live the life that he, when he was young, might never have been able to have felt. And that is pretty beautiful. That movie makes me feel really, really soft on the inside. And I would almost say that it feels like therapy watching that film. It's so good at helping you escape. It's so powerful at knocking away the barriers between you and the film and inviting you in to spend just a couple of hours somewhere that you feel as though you've been before, somewhere that you remember having been young when you were younger, somewhere that you remember, somewhere that you wish you could go back to. And it says that at any time, this better world is there that you can just fall into and feel as though you're there, smelling the smells, tasting the tastes, feeling the feelings, and exploring what it is that your heart desires to do. And for just a film for images and sounds to do that to a person, I think deserves no shorter honor than being my favorite film of all time. So yes, that is pretty much in the exact amount of time that I wanted. That is my list of my top 10 favorite films of all time. Marriage Story, The Lighthouse, Mother, Under the Skin, Old Boy, Swiss Army Man, 2001, Phantom Thread, Whiplash, and Call Me By Your Name. There is so much to enjoy about all of these films, so I would say if you haven't seen them, go out and watch them. Obviously pay attention to what it is that you can stomach, because some of these films are really disturbing, but if you really want to check these out, I would highly recommend that you do. I would really recommend it because they are pretty ridiculous and I love them all so dearly, and a lot of them have become key in who I am as a person today. And so I would highly recommend, if you feel like you want to get to know me better, you'll start by getting to know these films better because they are very important to me. Durara's World, Sal, thank you very much for the supers. Moin Chen, thank you very much. Joyce Lee, thank you very much. And Scalatini, thank you very much. Ren, thank you very much for the super as well. Oh, thank you. And Oliver K, thank you very much. All right, I think Lorax, thank you for the super, and Tokito, thank you for the Arca super. The features of each movie are fascinating by your sharing. That is really sweet of you to say. Thank you. Astrid, thank you for the super as well. Boys Love and Taxation. Sunny, thank you very much. All right. So Sari, thank you very much for the super. Cookie Cow and Delirious Doll, thank you very much. I have to go. I have to speak of the devil. Nope, nothing to do with it. No, I will have no rest today. Sad. Must find another way to get rid of this old paperweight that looks like a big TV. Boys Love and Taxation, Sunny, So Sorry, Cookie Cow, Anne, Persephone, Rebecca M, Wheatia, Linhith, Joxanne, Felicity Akuma, and Gloria. Thank you guys very much for all the supers, and hopefully one day I'll get to learn more about your guys' favorite films as well. I have to go. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get some ice cream today. So I'm gonna go get some ice cream and just go explore the city for a little while, get some fresh air, and then tomorrow I have a day off, and then the day after that I will be playing Stray, and I'll be emulating I'll be emulating Acuna, and I will be wearing the Catboy assets, okay? So fucking, you got it. You won, all right? See clips, you're winning. Eric, thank you very much for the super. I'm glad you enjoyed. Karen Lee, thank you. And Angelina, thank you for the Arca super. Love your taste. Thank you. And 02, happy birthday. Thank you for the Arca super. Of course you can get some birthday kisses. Thank you, of course you can. And Hitomi and Evan, thank you very much. All right, that's all from me. I'm going to take a break. Thank you guys so much for all of your support today. I really enjoyed just sort of hanging out and talking about some things that make me happy. So I will see you all in a couple of days. Thank you for supporting me, and I will see you soon. I love you guys very dearly. Goodbye.